Hi there, my name is Steve Bulmer. I'm a professional bass player here in Connecticut, and I'm also an instructor of jazz bass at the Hartt School, focusing on the pre-college students where I teach upright bass and electric bass. And what I thought I would do, since I have a little extra time on my hands, as I imagine you do too, is take you through the audition process for jazz bass for the Connecticut regional auditions coming up this fall. And I wanted to tell you a little bit what I know about how the adjudication works, but primarily I wanted to help you prepare the etude, because that is worth, if the adjudication forms don't change, nearly 3/4 of the points available during the audition. The etude this year, 2020 through 2021, is track number 16 out of the Jazz Conception books by Jim Snidero. It's called Friends, and I'm sure it's no mystery that it's based on the jazz standard Just Friends. So here's the book right here. You need to have a copy if you're going to audition, and even if you're not, it's a great book to have. It's got a lot of great improvisational studies on a lot of jazz classics. So today I'm going to take you through Friends, and I'm going to give you some ideas, and I'm going to talk about how the adjudication works as it relates to the piece. So out of 103 points available on the audition, 76 are for the etude, and they come in different categories. The easiest one to get points for, or to lose points on, is tempo and steady tempo throughout the piece. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you're playing the piece at the correct tempo. So it's indicated as a half note equals 90, which would be the same as a quarter note equals 180. And if you don't have a metronome, or you're probably not going to be able to bring a metronome into the audition anyway, the easiest way to get an accurate tempo reading is just to use your watch or a clock. So 180 beats per minute is 3 beats per second. I'll let you do the math on your own. So if I'm looking at my second hand over here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That should be our tempo. Quarter note equals 180, right about there. So if you got that, you got 15 points right out of the gate. All right, now that we have our tempo, let's start looking at the piece. Here's the top. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. All right, first two measures. And I'm going to use that as an opportunity to talk about style points. So the way the piece is written is all articulated, but I want to point something out to you as you start to practice this that you might want to consider doing. I like when there's running eighth notes, and in particular when the inner two eighth notes of a group of 4 are a half step apart in particular, I like slurring those two. So I'm slurring the and of one into the downbeat of the next. So look at the first measure, beats 3 and 4. We have D, E, F, G. If you were to play it as written, and I'll do it slowly, well, I like to slur those inner eighth notes, so the E to the F between beat 3 and 4. I think it gives a little bit more of a swing impetus, so like this. Kind of de-emphasizes beat 4 and gives you a couple ands in a row. You can also do that in measure 2, the F flat to the E flat, another half step descending, also works very well. So here's measure 2, the way it's written. But you can play it with a little slur. And I think it's appropriate to this piece. If you look over to measure 32, you'll see that in this edition, that piece was actually written out this way, where the inner two eighth notes are slurred, actually twice in that measure. So I think it's stylistically appropriate for the piece, and I think in some cases it makes things a little bit easier for the right hand, so I wouldn't be afraid to use it. So here's the first two measures of the piece. 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, measure 3 gives me an opportunity to point something else out. So this piece, this etude, and the original work it's derived on, Just Friends, are most often played in the key of F. Well, if you look carefully here, you'll see that there is no key signature or the key signature of C major, even though really it is written out in F. That means all the accidentals are written out for you. So the trap is that all the B's are going to be natural unless they're indicated as flat. So write in measure 3, and even the one you have to be more careful of is in measure 61, 3 bars from the end, you have a G minor 7, but the pickup, the and of 4 is a B natural. And I'll be honest, when I first read through this, I was too lazy to look at the key signature. I just assumed it was an F, so I was playing B flats where there were B naturals. So part of the adjudication is note accuracy, and there's a lot of notes in that, but those are a couple traps that you could fall into it. If you play B flat instead of B natural, you might get ticked off on a couple points. Okay. So we get into chorus 1. The thing I like about this etude is that this particular etude highlights a lot of the true melodic notes of Just Friends. So, Just Friends. And you'll find those notes highlighted in the first 8 measures. Why I bring that up is because another category for auditions where you can get or lose points is on dynamics. And if you look through this etude, you'll see that there isn't a single dynamic marking listed anywhere. So if we want to outshine the competition, I would say it's up to us to use the musical elements to help shape our dynamic contrast. And it's going to be up to us to put different dynamics into that. So when you think about the melody, that could be one way where we track our dynamics. As melody gets more intense, we may get louder. As melody relaxes or gets less intense, we may get softer. So at the beginning, where you have, then we come down a whole tone. I think of those 8 measures as the melody kind of settling and relaxing a little bit. So I actually like to bring my dynamics down about halfway through the first chorus and then build it back up before I get into the second chorus. So it's going to be something like this. 1, 2. Here's chorus 1, measure 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I brought it down just a little bit in measure 5 and 6. Okay. Now measure 7 gives us an opportunity to talk about well, I'll call it ornamentation. On the score sheet, they call it ornamentation. But here we have the first little technical challenge on beats 3 and 4 in measure 7, and that is the 8th and 2/16 notes. Now, you have to be careful to play it like an 8th and 2/16 notes and not be a triplet. It's not doobie-doo-boo-ba, it's da-ba-da-boo-ba. So it's an 8th, and then you have 2/16 notes that have to fill the place of a swung 8th note. So they go by very, very quickly. So what I like to do is leave the second 16th note out for a second. All right, so we would just have dum-ba-do-dum, 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 dum-ba-do-dum. So now we got to fit that G in without changing that rhythm. And the best way to do that on the bass is to just rake your middle finger across the 2 strings. And use the open G string to your advantage too. And once you got that perfected, it actually falls really nice on the bass. So that's actually a very fun spot to play. Okay, so now we're at the pickup to measure 9, so we're halfway through the first A section. There are fewer notes in this upcoming part of the piece, but there are a lot more specific articulations and note lengths and stylistic indications, including a couple slurs that you really need to pay attention to here. So the first thing are, look out for those cap notes, short accented notes, and then the legato notes. So specifically in measure 11, we have 2 E quarter notes in a row, one with a cap on it, short and accented, and then a legato afterwards. So here's the pickup to measure 9. 2, 1, 2, 3. 2, 3, 4, off. And when you have those 2 long whole notes in this case, it's really important that you cut off right where you're supposed to. Just like you're a horn player in a big band. Releases are as important to the momentum of the piece as the attacks are. So on that G, I want you to mute right on the downbeat of the measure afterwards, okay? All right, we've got some more slurs and articulations as we take the pickups into measure 17. 2, 1, 2, 3. So we're almost to the end of the first chorus. A couple things I want to point out here. Measure 17 into 18. There's another slur. So you got to pick up. No rearticulation there, okay? Measure 25. You have some nice chromatics, so you get to use all 3 fingers in a row. And if you shift right on the and to beat 4, get to articulate that offbeat. So let me explain what I mean. So here's measure 25, okay? We have the C sharp, and then you shift down to the 4th finger on C flat, and you get to accent the and of 4 and maybe not accent the downbeat so much. So that's nice. It works in tandem with the shift there. So and another piece of advice, when you have phrases that end to 8th notes, because of the swung rhythm, if there's no particular articulation, I like to do long short. So measure 27, the C sharp to the D, gives it that push again. All right, we're almost done with the first chorus. We're now looking at the pickups in measure 28, the bottom of the first page, into measure 29. This is the closing phrase for the first chorus. It's got our highest notes, and it's really going to be the climax of chorus 1, so we really got to nail it. So what I'm going to suggest that you do when you play it is in measure 28, to prepare for that high F and to minimize shifting, that you switch to the 3rd and a half position, grab the A flat and the A on the D string, and then the F on the A string. Then you'll be in good position, only a position away to grab the high F. So measure 28 will be like this. And then grab the open D, measure 29, back to the A string. And now we're just going to shift up, grab the C on the D string. So we got a nice strong position for the high F. And we're not bouncing around on the G string, perhaps messing up our intonation in this critical moment here. So for the pickups into 29 should sound something like this. All right. And just to make it extra hard, I threw a bunch of caps and long notes in there, so you got to look at that and play that kind of correctly. So now we have a little over a bar pickup into chorus 2, and we have those little slurs on the inner 8th notes that I like. So should sound something like this. 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 1. All right. Now let's look at measure 35. We've talked about the opportunity to gain or lose points for our slurring. We have a tough one here. We've got the B flat down to the F. The only way to do that is to take it all on the D string. So the way I think you should facilitate that is starting in bar 34, you're going to be on the D string, you're going to grab the open G, and then you're going to stay on the D string and shift up to your 1st finger on A. So once again, open G, I think that's the best way to tackle that lick and get that slur in there. And I'm going to use the open G on the next line too. So here's the pickup into bar 37. Open then G, and grab A with 4. All right, that's the way I'm going to play that. Then we can relax a little bit. Well, remember that that pickup is in A flat to the A natural. Short. 2, 3, 4. All right. Now we got a nice opportunity for a slur in measure 49. And it's tempting to slur. That's like a real Ray Brown lick, as if you went. But it's not written that way. So here's, I think, where you need to slur where it's written and not slur where it's not indicated, so that the judges know that you're really paying attention to the music, okay? So I think you're going to play, or I think you should play, in measure 49. All right, just as it's written. All right, and moving on, measure 51. Nice long D flat 1, 2. And then short C. So the first half of the phrase has a long note, and the second half has the short note. So you got to differentiate there. 1, 2, 2, 3. All right, now for the other little tricky ornamentation, if you will. Once again, there's a section for ornaments. There's not really any ornaments in here, but this little triplet, like the 8th note and 2/16 beforehand, are kind of our jazz ornamentation, if you will. So here, it is a real triplet. Now, there's several ways to play it. So you could play it all articulated. That's fine. You can also hammer on. Makes it a little smoother, a little more doodly-doodly, if you will. That's the way I prefer to play it. And then articulate on the D. Now, if you really want to go the extra mile, you could left hand pits the open D after you hammer on the first 3 notes. Oops. And if you can do that, you're a better bass player than I am, because I can't do it. I like re-articulating the D with my right hand. Here it is all articulated. I think you can hear the notes better if you try to pluck each one. All you hear is the attack, and you don't really hear the pitches, in my opinion. Okay, and we have a scoop into the note on measure 55. Here's a chance to express ourselves. So don't cheat on that scoop. Give it all it's worth, because we don't have a lot of opportunity. So 2, 3, 4, 1. And if you want to have a little fun with this and use a little different technique, it's fun to just not re-articulate and slide down on the A flat, G flat, F, something like this. Gives it a little funky flavor if you want to try something different. 2, 3, 4, 1. All right, we're almost to the end here. One thing I did want to point out is that in measure 57 and 58, the high D there, believe it or not, in the alto sax edition of this, there's a little scoop grace note up to the high D, but there isn't in the bass book. So I'm going to encourage you to kind of scoop up to that note anyway. I think it's stylistically appropriate, and I think it sounds good. So starting at measure 57, I think that sounds great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. All right, and then we're almost to the end. Another little lick. All right, so B natural pickup into the last 2 measures. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and it's important to really accent that last note. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ba-da. Nice big fat cap on the end. Well, there you have it. That's my take and tips and tricks on playing Jim Snidero Friends, at least the etude. Don't forget that after you play through the etude, then you have to go back and you have to create a bass line on the entire form. So that's the intro and 2 choruses. There's some great recordings out there that you can certainly play along with. The one quoted in the real book is When Sonny Met Hawk, and I think Henry Grimes is the bass player on there, so that's a great place to learn bass lines. If you want to check it out on YouTube, it's out there. I looked at it. And just have fun with it. Don't forget to let the music that you hear inside of you come out through your instrument, and good luck on the audition. There's some information below if you want to check out my website, or if you want to check out the Hartt Pre-College division of the Hartt School where I teach, and hopefully we'll see you in person real soon.